Previously on Action Retro. Oh god, they're all clicking on. Launching chess from the Mega Floppy. Recently, we had a heck of a time getting a giant raid of floppy disks working under a decades-old version of macOS X. So today, let's try and make an even bigger Mega Floppy, this time with the power of Linux. Oh god, no, not this thing. I have something better. A totally normal Power Mac G5 running Void Linux. Let's see how many of these floppy disks we can get raided together and then, I don't know, let's serve a website from them. Things are gonna get weird, so stay tuned. And if you enjoy the soothing sounds of dozens of floppy drives screaming in agony, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. We torture a lot of vintage tech around here, so it's definitely worth sticking around. So the last time we tried to raid a whole bunch of floppy disks together, we used macOS 10.4, which makes it incredibly easy to create raids using disk utility, which is built right in. Unfortunately, I don't think it's very tolerant to quirks, such as differing drive speeds. And if there's one thing that 34 random USB floppy drives have in common, it's quirks. So in the end, only 13 of those drives would successfully raid together and allow us to format them as a single volume and then install software to them. So today, we're going to use the much more modern MDadmin in Linux. This will give us a lot of flexibility in the type of raid that we create. And hopefully, it'll be a lot more tolerant to the quirks of, well, a pile of random USB floppy drives. Also, a few of you mentioned that I got some of the details wrong about raid levels in the last video, so I've brought in an expert to help give you a fast but thorough explanation. Sean? That guy doesn't know anything. I'll link to a really good 3-minute video about raid levels down in the description that I found really helpful, even though it's a video from 2013. Oh, and if you're wondering why this G5 is all taped together with wires hanging out all over the place, kind of Draga 1 style, check out this video right here. We tried to install a bunch of modern PCIe graphics cards into this thing, and since the last video, I actually made a ton of progress. So make sure you stick around because the update video on that is coming very soon. Now, before we zoom into this beast and take a look at the base that we'll be building our ridiculous Mega Floppy 2 raid from, a quick word about today's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is currently running their 8th anniversary promotion with tons of coupons, huge sales on prototyping and assembly, and much more. So now is the perfect time to hit them up for high quality PCB prototyping and production. They also have 3D printing, injection molding, CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, and even those PCB assembly services. PCBWay is a longtime sponsor and friend of this channel, and I'm so grateful to have them around. So if you have any PCB or prototyping needs, I hope you'll give PCBWay.com a try. Okay, so here is our G5 booted up into Void Linux, and yeah, this isn't any regular Power Mac G5. It's a little bit special. Let me show you with a quick Neo fetch. This is the final Power Mac G5, which is a dual processor, 4-core, 2.5 gigahertz monstrosity. And we are running AMD Radeon 6870 graphics, and this thing is maxed out in RAM with 16 gigs. And we're going to be using a piece of software called MDadmin. Now, as far as I've been able to tell, MDadmin has its roots in early 2000s SUSE Linux, and its sole purpose is to arrange multiple drives, hence MD, into various types of RAID. So as a test, let's hook up a bunch of floppy drives, a small subset of our total, and see if we can detect them and see if MDadmin can put them into a RAID. Ron approves. Oh god, they're all clicking on. Oh good, and they're all mounting on the desktop. Alright, and that is actually way too many volumes here, because I guess from Mac OS X doing a RAID here, I put all kinds of other volumes on there to keep track of it. I don't know, a 32 kilobyte volume, 8.2 kilobyte volume. I have no idea what's going on here. So I assume we'll have to just toast all of these, but let's do a quick ls USB here. ls USB grep floppy 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Awesome. I should look into the MD admin documentation to see if I need to format all of these individually, or if I can just YOLO these into a RAID. Okay, so it seems like I can just YOLO these into the RAID without partitioning them one by one, which thank goodness for that, because that would take forever. So we'll use mousepad, and the first thing we're going to have to do is go back to our LSBLK up here. Yeah, we'll have to go from here because we have to do dev and then each of these. So the command is going to be sudo mdadmin create dev md0, that's the RAID device, virtual device. And then the RAID level, we'll do RAID level 5 here, so we have a little bit of redundancy in case one of our floppy disks goes bad, as unlikely as that may be. And now the annoying part, we have to specify each device that's going to go into the RAID. So -N9, and then specify each one. So we have dev, let's see. Pretty sure that'll do it. It's too small, 1440K, for required metadata. What metadata? Okay, so evidently this create command creates metadata in the array, and if we do build, that omits the metadata, and I'm not going to pretend that I totally understand what's going on, but I'm pretty sure it just means that it's going to be a little bit less reliable if something goes wrong. RAID 5 not permitted with build. What? We're going to go RAID 0. Alright, RAID level 0. And you better work, because otherwise we're not going to have a video. Oh my god, it's working. The disks are waking up. I think we're RAID 0ing. Okay, let's mkfs.ext4 dev md0 sudo mkfs. Oh, there they go. They're doing stuff. Yeah, it seems to have worked. df-h doesn't show here because I didn't mount it yet. Okay, let's see. We'll mount it to megafloppy. No errors. The floppy drives are doing stuff. I think it did something. I think it mounted. Okay, df-h 11 megabytes on megafloppy. All right, cd megafloppy. Oh, it's there. Okay, let's Let's open up our mega floppy here in a window that we can see. And let's try to copy something to it. So in downloads here, I have a couple MP3s from my old band in the mid-2000s. Let's copy a file over. Okay, so that went way too smoothly. Almost suspiciously smoothly. There's only one thing left to do. Let's hook up the rest of these things and send it. All right, let's boot this thing up with 32 floppy drives connected to it. Okay, so what I wound up doing was going through, hooking up each of these floppy drives one at a time and trying to make FS of a FAT32 file system on each of the floppy disks, and also erasing all the partitions to make sure that each one of these actually did work and had a working floppy disk in it. And in doing so, I found, yeah, 2 more stragglers that failed, and now, check it out. We have array dev md0 built and started out of 30 floppy disks. That's 30 floppy disks in one RAID array. All right, so let's make file system extended 4 on dev md0. Oh no, input-output error. Son of a gun. Evidently, it didn't like journaling when I made the extended 4 file system without the journal. It worked, and I mounted it to megafloppy, and oh my god, look at this. 43 megabyte volume. That is 43 megabytes of floppy disks. Oh my god, I can't believe it. Look at that. Floppy disk, floppy disk, floppy disk, floppy disk, floppy disk. All right, let's try to move files to it, I guess. Let's just see if this works. We have plenty of space now for our music. All right. Look, it's there. It worked. All right, well, it's a little concerning how it says free space 22.3 megabytes when it should be 43 megabytes, but yeah, I'm sure that's fine. Okay, so I have done some things. Check this out. Now that our RAID works and I was able to format it in extended 4 just with journaling turned off, I've installed Apache, which is a web server software, and I'm going to mount the Apache directory here with the floppy RAID so that when someone visits our web server here, it's going to serve files from the floppy RAID. So all I need to do is sudo mount dev md0, that's our RAID, to srv dub Apache. And yeah, looks like that worked. So now if I do dh.f, df.h, yes, our 38 megabyte RAID is mounted on the Apache directory document root. So any files that I put in here are going to show up if you visit the web server. And I have made a couple files here. Permission denied. Son of a gun. Okay, so I've made a couple files here, including an HTML file. Well, those floppies are really going. And this HTML file is simply this. Ignore the color issues here because Firefox does have some problems on PowerPC 64. But yeah, there's 2 images, this HTML file, and an MP3 of my old band. All hosted off of 30 floppy disks in a RAID. So then what I've done is set up a dynamic DNS to point to this website. Yep. And now I'm going to open it up to the wider internet and we'll see what happens. All right, I'm about to pull the trigger. Let's see what happens. Okay, so it's been running for quite a while, over an hour, and not a lot of disk activity, and I figured out what the issue is. This is such a small amount of data that all the requests are coming from the kernel I/O cache and not actually hitting these disks. Okay, so if this is accurate, as soon as I run this command, every second it's going to erase that I/O cache and send all the requests directly to this pile of floppy drives. Oh god. Yeah, so I have every request bypassing the cache and going directly to the floppy drives. And we're currently at 30 to 40 requests per second. It was at this point that my post to Hacker News linking directly to my mega floppy website hit the front page. And yeah, hits went crazy. The floppy RAID was now directly connected to the front page of Hacker News. Oh my god, 83 requests per second. Well, it seems she's starting to fail. Oh, she's getting grumpy. 1 or 2 of those drives is not very happy right now. Look at that. My goodness. Whoa. 3,245 hits to my floppy RAID. Amazing. Now the $1,000,000 question, of course, is what happens if I start taking floppy disks out while this thing is running? And you better believe we're not ending this video until I start popping out floppy disks while the RAID is serving files. So let's let's see what happens. All right, removed 2 floppy disks. Let's refresh the page. All right, shockingly, it's still loading. Although I think it now only has 3 out of the 4 MP3 files. Let's pull some more floppies. Take you. Take you. This IBM drive. And this orange floppy. Okay, it's still trying to load. What happens if I try to edit the HTML file and save it back to the RAID? Lol, 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 lol. Save. I think it's compensating. More floppies out. Failed to save the document, input-output error. I guess that is to be expected when you pull the floppy disks out of your floppy RAID while it's live. Totally normal computing. Okay, so that'll do it for today's episode of Totally Normal Computing. We got way farther than we probably ever should have, raiding together 30 floppy drives, serving it to the open internet, getting to front page on Hacker News with about 100 requests per second to the RAID from HN at the highest point. That's ridiculous. And yeah, these things made a lot of noise. Now, it was not without some issues, especially as the night wore on, because I left this up for about 8 hours today. And at some point, that command I used to bypass the I/O cache stopped working. Something went wrong with the sync command. You type in sync, hit enter, and it would just sit there. So I guess it was probably never designed for this use case. But I still find this incredibly funny. I wonder how many more floppy drives I can get and RAID together. You know, theoretically, USB can handle 127 devices per USB controller. And I do have a whole bunch of USB controller cards laying around. So yeah, maybe you could even, I don't know, install a full operating system to a RAID, like install Linux to the RAID and just have a boot partition on a tiny disk-on module and just boot your whole OS from a RAID of floppy drives. The possibilities are endless, unlike my supply of floppy disks. But that'll do it for today's video. If you liked it, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of these totally normal computing shenanigans, please subscribe down below. And thank you very much for watching. And a special thanks to Alberto Guerre, Camila Noceda, Chris Allegretta, Chris Biggs, Chris Calderon, Chris Nelson, Cobalt Retrotech, Control-Alt-Reese, Daniel Hubbard, Greg from Hrutk Mods, Ryan, and Scott Thompson, who are my highest tiered patrons, and all of my Patreon supporters for helping to make these videos possible.